Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for attending Black Women in Clinical Research monthly career pathways event where we bring on guests in various roles within clinical research to bring you information about career pathways for yourself. If you are new to clinical research or if you want to pivot from a whole different career, or if you want to see if there's another avenue within your realm of clinical research that you want to join into. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce my co-host first, and then we're going to introduce our two guests, and then we'll get started. So as we're doing this conversation, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll make sure that we get to it, me or Courtney, by the end of it. And also, we're going to open it up at the end of the discussion too, to have you ask those questions that you may want to ask, and you can come off of mute and ask as you want to. So I'll just give you a quick introduction of myself. My name is Tiffany Drummond. If you go to Wind Down Wednesday, I'm pretty sure you see me there. I've hosted co-hosted a couple of the career events that we've done in the past few months. And I am a clinical research professional that have been doing regulatory work for almost 2 decades now, going into some new areas with that. That'll be, if you come to Wind Down Wednesday next week, you'll hear my good news. But aside from that, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, my girl Courtney, to introduce herself, and then we'll get to our guests.
I hate when people leave me hanging with news. I am an anxious person, and I'm thinking about that for the next week. But anyway, I am Courtney. I am also a co-host of this wonderful monthly career chat. I am a CRA level 1 with PPD, part of Thermo Fisher. I have been with them for 2 years now. I have gone through each level of clinical operations on the active, like working worker bee side, if you will. And so I am happy to be here with everyone and to be back because I was absent last month, but I'm back and I'm glad to be here with you all and to learn more about these different careers in clinical research.
I'm loving all the frames in this group today, and I'm pretty sure some of my audience members out there have some beautiful frames as well. So thank you, Courtney, for joining us again. I hope you're doing well, my dear. So I'm always happy to see you. So now we're going to introduce our guest of the evening. I'm going to start with Kalicia because you're at the top of my screen. If you don't mind sharing a little, oh, also before I get started, I'm so sorry. I normally introduce Danielle Mitchell, who is the founder of Black Women in Clinical Research. She is in the room, but she's a little under the weather, so she's not going to introduce herself today. But if you want to know more about her, if you haven't already, if you're under a rock, please visit BWICR.com, or you can find her on LinkedIn, and we'll share some events that are going to be coming up with BWICR as well at the end of this session. So back to Kalicia, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about who you are and your background and your current role that you're doing right now in clinical research.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Kalicia Fleming. I am originally from Augusta, Georgia, and I went to Hampton University and I got involved in clinical research after college when I moved to Atlanta. And surprisingly, my story is random, but I was driving down the road one day. It was a year after the Atlanta storm, and it was that weather was coming around again. I didn't want to get on the interstate and get stuck, so I took a side road. I passed a company called Atlanta Center for Medical Research, and that actually started my career as a research assistant. And from there, I have worked my way up on the site side to a research coordinator, spent some time as a research coordinator, which brought me to North Carolina, and I worked at Duke at the time. I am currently now a senior PC at Fortrea, and I have one 7-year-old son, and he keeps me pretty busy outside of work.
I love that. What a story. What a story, girl. You never know how you're going to land into the career that you land in, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm pretty sure your 7-year-old is running around because it's summertime. And so I get it. I get it. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Jaquasia. If you can do the same, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what your current role is right now. And then we'll get started.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I am Jaquasia, and I am originally from Elizabeth City, North Carolina, but I reside here in Durham, North Carolina. I graduated from North Carolina Central University with my bachelor's degree pharmaceutical science with a minor in chemistry. Originally, I wanted to be a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacy technician for about 6 years, hated it. I like to call myself, and my family like to call me, a professional student, because if I don't like something, I'm going to school for something else. So I ended up going to school and becoming a dental assistant, got that degree, hated it, never even worked in a field, but I do know about teeth. And I ended up moving to Winston-Salem with my family, worked in a pharmacy for a minute, and then I ended up just realizing I can't do this anymore. So I moved here to Durham, worked at Duke for about a year. And it took me coming home one night, boo-hoo crying, because I was so tired of, one, not making a lot of money, because I love everything fashion, everything home decor. You can't tell me I love it. I have to do it. And I just wasn't fulfilling myself in the things I like to do. And so I ended up enrolling into my master's program at Campbell and got my master's in clinical research. And I found out about Black women in clinical research when it first started. Danielle was hitting the road running and she was trying to get it started. And I remember when we had a small Facebook group, and I'm so happy to see how big it is now. And now I'm in school to get my doctorate in clinical research. So that's me.
All right, you had to throw that in there. Oh, and by the way, also, I'm going to get my doctorate as well, which is amazing. So congratulations on that, right? And so
Thank you.
all of you listening right there again, and we always see this when we do these career events, how everyone's journey to get here is so different, but then we all end up here. And so whatever path you have to get here, it's going to be well worth it in the end, and you'll see that it's going to be successful for you, right? So don't think, oh, well, I never done this before, that I can't be in that, because that's absolutely not true. You can do whatever you put your mind to, okay? So now we are going to get started. I'm going to just do a view so that I can see speaker only. I think I got that. Okay, speaker only. All right, so now we're going to get started. I'm going to ask you some questions. Again, feel free, if you're in the chat, I have it open as well, so you'll see my eyes kind of doing this while I'm asking you all these questions. But the first question I want to ask you is, describe your role as a project coordinator. And if you can be specific in telling me how your role is different than that of, say, a clinical research coordinator. So I'm going to start with Jaquasia. If you can kind of tell me, explain to me what a project coordinator is and how that's different than like a clinical research coordinator.
So a project coordinator is responsible for overseeing and managing various aspects of a project. So we ensure that tasks are completed on time, resources are allocated effectively, our stakeholders are informed about project progress, and we may also handle administrative duties such as scheduling meetings, maintaining project documentation, and coordinating communication among team members and our sponsor. All of us probably know we have different functions, startup, data manager, biostats. So we are the right-hand man to the project manager. Our project manager, when he help with this, we're going to do it, even if it's not a PC task. And I always tell everybody, don't just rely on doing PC tasks. If you want to be promoted, do them hard tasks as a project manager. Already act like you're a PM. And so that's what I do as a project coordinator. And so on the clinical research coordinator side, they primarily are focused on facilitating and supporting research duties. So they work closely with researchers and scientists to plan and execute research projects. So they may involve coordinating research protocols, recruiting patients, collecting and analyzing data, and ensuring compliance. And so that's how it's pretty different from a research coordinator and a project coordinator.
Okay, now I do know, Kalicia, because I think you both work at the same organization, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you can kind of expand on that if you want to, or did she already say what you were going to say in a nutshell? But if you want to expand on that, please feel free.
I mean, I'll add a little 2 cents. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty much the same. But yes, as the right hand to your project manager on the CRO side, we're making sure deliverables get to the sponsor. We're making sure that financials are being managed. We're making sure that things that the sponsor wants to add to their scope for the CRA gets added through change orders and such. We're managing and reviewing risk and strategizing as well for different techniques to use with the sites or have the sites implement. Whereas on the research side, for my time spending as a research coordinator, it does vary depending on the type of setting, because I've been in 3 different types of settings. And so sometimes you're responsible for the whole shebang, but at the end of the day, on the research coordinator side, you're more patient focused and bringing the patients in and actually performing the visits, whether that includes drawing blood, doing your data entry, and an integral part is also providing those documents your CRAs are constantly nagging you about, because those need to go into the ETMF, which needs to deliver to the sponsor, which as PCs we oversee. So.
But as someone who was at the site, I do have a little bit of that experience as well. One thing I do like to tell people when we're talking about careers, especially when it comes to, as you heard both of these ladies mention, project coordinator different than clinical research coordinator. When you're thinking about where you want to go in your career, really think about, do you want to be at an academic site level or even a clinical site level, or do you want to be at the sponsor level, which is totally different, right? If you're at the site level, you're going to be more patient facing, depending on the work that you're doing, if you're a clinical research coordinator. But if you are a CRA or you're a project coordinator on the sponsor side, that role looks very different in what you're overseeing and who you're going to be seeing. So that's something to think about as well, because a lot of times people don't realize what their focus is, right? So thank you so much for explaining that. That was well put. Thank you. So you already kind of mentioned this, but I'm going to ask again to both of you. Tell me how you landed this role specifically. So if you need to go back in the job that you were before, or maybe a career you were before, how did you land here at Fortrea? So I'll start with you, Kalicia, and then I'll get to Jaquasia.
So Jaquasia and I was actually discussing this before the call started. A friend of a friend actually worked for then at the time Covance in startup, and informed me that there were some openings in project management. I had just made my transition from research coordinator over to at the time IQVIA, and I had been there less than 6 months at the time, and I was like, but I knew my interest was in project management, which I discovered prior. And so I wanted to take a chance, and I went ahead. I reached out to people on LinkedIn, which included one, Jaquasia was one of those people. And I asked her about her experience thus far with the Project Management Academy. And based off of that, I went ahead and I applied and I accepted the role when the offer came. And so
you make it sound so easy, Kalicia, but I know it's not.
I promise you. You're living it is different.
So Jaquasia, tell me about your experience and how you got into this role at Fortrea. Because I want you all to know that I'm a stalker. As regulatory, I do a lot of research, and so I already know everything about you all, except I didn't know you had a 7-year-old son, Kalicia, but now I know that too, so I know your life story. So Jaquasia, tell me how you got here and maybe some roles that you had before leading up to getting here.
So I never knew clinical research was a thing. And this is why I think graduating for HBCU and the resources that we did not have back then and they do have now is amazing. Because originally growing up, you think, I need a white coat to make a lot of money. I need a white coat. I need to have doctor in front of my name. But you get into that role and you're like, I don't like what the doctor do. I don't like what a pharmacist does, none of that. So it took me just scrolling on Facebook, and one of my friends was in Black Women in Clinical Research, and I'm like, what's this? And then getting added into the group from her, and just hit the ground answering questions. And I want to thank Andrika, because this is when they were just getting started and they was reviewing resumes and giving us interview preps, and I did everything from A to Z. Okay, I'm like, I need to get in this. And so how I landed my role at LabCorp, I was just scrolling the internet, just applying to jobs, reading up on clinical research, trying to just elevate, you know what I'm saying, my how to think about it and how to get into the roles. And I just ended up seeing the Project Management Academy and applied to it. And ironically, that's when transferable skills comes in. And that's when Andrika and Danielle was just saying, you can do it. Your skills are transferable. And I just went forward and they wanted me. And so that's how I got into LabCorp.
That is an amazing story. Yeah, I too didn't really know what clinical research was before I got into it as well. It's one of those things that kind of fell into my lap. So thank you for sharing that story. I'm not sure what happened to our girl, Kalicia. Did she get dropped off? Is she still here? You're here? I don't know why you got dropped off online. Okay, because I had you pinned and then you got removed. Okay, there you are again, because you were missing from my screen. I was like, where is she? Um, okay, thank you, ladies, again so much for that. So I'm going to start with you, Jaquasia. If you can tell me what is a typical day like? Tell us what you were doing today. And I kind of heard a little bit before our meeting got started, but tell me what a typical day like is for you.
So a typical day for me is emails is just the holy grail for remote jobs anyway. So everything is, talked about through emails and meetings. So I usually get up in the morning. My first meeting is probably around 9, but working in clinical research, you may have PMs that's based in a whole nother time zone than you. So my PM is 5 hours ahead of me. So I'm coming in and she's leaving. We might have about, saying a couple hours together to work. And so her meeting started at 8. And so I get up early enough for her just to talk to her and stuff. But I get up in the morning. This morning I had an 8 o'clock meeting. And we talked about our trial master file, which is where all of our documentation is saved. And our metrics, metrics is big in these projects. Like you have to be in the green for everything. And our client wants to know about those metrics and fix all of the issues. So I just go through my email, respond back regarding scheduling, or maybe my ClinOps needs help with, uploading information to CTMS or our different systems. It's just a typical day of just me running through the email.
I can understand that. I can understand that. What about you, Kalicia? How is your day going when you have a typical day? And don't front, okay? Like, tell us what's the real, because you done gave us a side already. So what is your day like?
For the most part, my day, same. Pretty much emails, of course, are the flow of everything. And I keep a running list of my actions that I need to take care of, adjust based off of priorities. But today I had a meeting at 8 o'clock this morning. I also have 1 p.m. that is overseas South Africa based. So 5-6 hours ahead. I also have another PM that is East Coast based. So that works for me as well. But yeah, I had a meeting first thing this morning. After that, I went in and made some updates to our ETMF, and as well as
Can you
CTMF.
explain ETMF for those out there who may not know what that is?
Oh, the trial master file,
Okay.
that is electronic, and where we keep all of our documents. And so made some updates within the system. We have our CTMS, which is our central trial management system, and that also kind of follows metrics for the study. And we update, site specific details as well as study level details within the CTMS. And because we are activating 4 new sites on one of my projects, and as we're updating those, went through and created them in the system. Had to go through after that. I had another meeting with with a group of my project managers on my global trial. It's a large project, over 1,900 patients to enroll, about 400 sites, and we're at more than 20 something countries right now for that project. But it's a large volume of people working on the project, and we're going through a change order. So I went through a whole breakdown through our TAR versus our billing guide, and trying to go through and managing those updates for the scope changes and tracking our variances in time versus what was originally projected for, based off of the original contract, and seeing if there's any overages there.
Okay, so it seems to me, just based on your conversation between both of you, that you work with multiple project managers, not just one, right? Is that the case? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working with multiple project managers. I'm assuming multiple therapeutic areas as well, then, right? So you're dealing with, okay, a lot of things. Okay, so we'll get to what kind of skills you need later. That's going to be on Courtney to ask that. But everybody keep in mind about that, okay? And so I did want to ask as a follow up: are you both hybrid or remote, 100% remote in the role that you're in?
We have the choice to either, I work remote, but we have the choice to go in office if we want to, but it's not mandatory.
Okay. All right. Because that's always something too. Those who are thinking remote, remote work or hybrid work. Okay. And so just a couple more questions for myself before I turn it over to Courtney. I feel like I kind of know, but what are the biggest challenges that you face in this role, that you've seen so far since you've been working with for Trio, or just as a project coordinator in general? What's the biggest challenge that you see? Oh, I'm sorry. You go first, Jaquasia. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the biggest challenge for me, because the way that the project management academy is set up, is based on you learning as much as you can to become a project manager or going to startup or other functions. My biggest issue is logging off of my computer, really, because I just want to help with everything and I want to learn everything, and taking on so much work. Just giving myself a break. We have unlimited PTO where we work. So we can take off as much as we want to, as long as we want to. And I rarely use it. And my line manager has to tell me, Jaquasia, take off work. Come on. Like, it's okay. Your work will be there. So that's my biggest challenge. I really love what I do.
Okay, I like that. All right, what about you, Kalicia? What is your biggest challenge?
I'm going to say a challenge that I've been experiencing a lot lately is just managing your client or sponsor expectations. Sometimes on the pharmaceutical sides, they sometimes don't have things don't line up for things that they're asking for. And so sometimes on projects, just having to let them know, like, maybe they've implemented something and it's like, well, maybe we should try reworking it, or just having to push back on the sponsor sometimes. So being a part of those conversations has been I've been involved in more so lately on a few projects because of, like, maybe the sponsor wants to spend a certain amount of money and the project, is going to charge, additional charges for a specific task that they're wanting to have added, and they assume that it's less than what it's supposed to be, or if there's something that they want the sites to do, and just kind of adjusting their expectations.
So I have a follow-up question for you about that. So do you get to be involved in any of that decision-making process, or is it really just so you there to support them in this discussion of, okay, how are we going to like do this and switch around this money and do all of that? So are you a part of those conversations as a project coordinator?
So yes, a lot of times I am. I won't say overall making the final say so or decision, but being a part of the strategy meetings to prepare for what we're going to present to the sponsor, and as well as I am in direct communication and emails with sponsors on some of my projects. So
okay, perfect. And I just want to give you also give you a piece of advice before you follow up. The thing about always saying yes, okay, that will get you in trouble. It'll get you in trouble. And the reason why I know, because I did it to myself before, that you say yes to so many things that it starts becoming overwhelming, and then the things that you actually are responsible for might slip. Not that you're going to do that, but that happened to me, where I was saying yes to so many things, and I'm like, yes, I'll do that. And then the one thing I'm supposed to be responsible for, I kind of slipped away because I was doing so much. And also because you don't want to get stretched, because if you keep doing it, they'll ask for it, and then they'll expect it, and then they'll ask why you're not doing it. And so just make sure that you keep your own peace when you're doing that, and say, sometimes you can say no, right? Just making sure that, because I don't want you all to get into that where it's like, well, if I don't do that, they're not going to know how eager I am. So I do always say, of course, you should do more than what your job entails, because that's how you learn. But when you do it too much, make sure that the person who's asking you to do it is also doing their part as well, so that you're not picking up the slack for other people. And that's just me, because I want my money. So if you're getting the money that I should be getting because I'm doing the work that you're doing, I want to make sure I get paid. But follow up, Jaquasia, what were you going to say to Kalicia?
Just to piggyback on what Kalicia said, and following up with the sponsor, I have learned in this role, because I want to be promoted and have a higher position, you got to find a voice, and you have to be sturdy. And I do know when my sponsor says, well, for instance, we had a TMF issue when we have a certain amount of sponsor documents that we file in our TMF. And our TMF team, they don't check the metadata for the documents. So that means that my sponsor's documents have to be inspection ready. Nothing has to be wrong, because we're not going to check it for you. The only thing we're checking for them is duplicates and making sure the document is classified correctly. They wanted us to check for errors on their documents. Oh no, here's what our SOP says. That is out of scope for us. Are you going to pay us for this, or you're going to make sure that your documents is inspection ready? And so my PM started to learn, we're gonna give that conversation to my PC equation because she knows what she's talking about, and she's not gonna tell you, yes, we're gonna do this for you. So you got to be real sturdy with them because they will try to run over you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you said that. So you let me know already. I'm not worried about you in the least. Okay. Yes. Andrika dropped in the chat, manage the scope. Right. So what is your scope of responsibility, right? What is the work that you're supposed to be doing? That's absolutely correct. I'm going to ask one more question before I turn it over to my girl, Courtney, who got the glasses that I want. Thank you so much. So I know I asked you both about the biggest challenge, but what do you find most rewarding about this job that you're doing? Well, I know for you, Jaquasia, because you love doing the work, but what do you find most rewarding about this job?
So you can go, Khaleesi. I just answered. I'll go after you.
Oh, all right, no problem. Honestly, call me crazy, but I actually like challenges. And so I find it very rewarding just dealing with the day in and day out of being a PC or I'm working in project management. You're going to be faced every day and every month with new issues, new challenges. There's going to be something added to that journey as you go along. And it definitely opens up a lot of windows and opportunities for you to learn new things. And I'm all for having those new experiences and trying to gain as much information as I can from them. And then at the end of the day, I mean, that's the reason why we do research. We do research to learn about the drugs or devices that they're implementing and how they affect people every day and to impact the lives of the patients that we're treating. Whether the project gets pulled or if it goes all the way to completion, it's something to be learned about that project for the study team as well as the pharmaceutical companies.
I'm not going to call you crazy. You said it, but I love you so much, girl. And we need project coordinators. Like, honestly, if there weren't project coordinators, things would not get done.
Nope.
That I know. So, Jaquasia, we know it's true. Anybody who does research knows that's true. Jaquasia, what is your most rewarding aspect of the work that you do?
One, I love the challenges. Once you start to take on a challenging work, you start putting your hands in different pots, and you end up becoming a subject matter expert on a lot of things. That trickles into people wanting to request you to be on their studies. And I get requested to be on a lot of people's studies, but this is what my line manager wants to happen. And then number two, I find rewarding hearing about how our study drugs are actually working. So on one of my studies, I'm on an oncology study, and one of my patients came in for their first scans. And the first scan showed that their tumor was a certain size. And by the time they were on cycle 6, their tumor was shrunk by 60%. So now they were able to get the tumor removed and come off the study. That's amazing to me because you can hear about a lot of your patients dying, and I hate that so much. And so just hearing that, saying the drugs are working helps. And then as a PC, like internally, we get this thing called ACE rewards. And so how good you are doing on your studies and your PMs or other functions may submit you to get an ACE award. That's free money. And they're based on levels. So the lowest one is like $25, $50, and then $100. And so we get that money, drop into this cart for us, and we can go shop at stores like all around in malls, Abercrombie and Fitch, go get food, Nike, all of that. And so I love free money, and so I love that aspect about my job.
Oh, I was going to say, I want to get some awards too. And, oftentimes too, that you don't, a lot of times you don't get rewarded. So I'm glad that you're in a place where you can be rewarded for the work that you do, because it is important. Especially like you said, a lot of us that aren't in patient facing roles don't really get to always see those good things that happen with our patients, like being able to go off study or seeing their tumor, go on remission and things like that. So thank you so much. So I'm going to turn this over to Courtney to kind of finish out the questions, the Q&A that we have for you. So take it away, Courtney.
Thank you, Tiffany. So I want to start my question with Jaquasia, since you mentioned that you were able to kind of watch how the drugs or, whatever you're working on is working for your subjects. Has there been kind of this, would you say that project coordinating is kind of like the body of a spider web that could lead to many different career paths? By that, I mean, Have you been able to really pinpoint one specific path for yourself, or can you just branch out to anywhere? And I will start with Kalisha.
Yes, I would definitely agree. Especially with we've changed the name actually. It's Project Coordinator Academy now that we're under our new Fortria umbrella. And they did that change for a specific reason, is now they're implementing these new secondments, or pretty much like internships kind of sort of in different areas within the company. And so that allows people to take the opportunity to explore some of your other interests. So right now there's an open secondment in auxiliary supplies, being an auxiliary supply lead. I've seen people also move into startup and become a startup PM. I've seen others also go into clinical operations. So there's definitely room to be able to move around. And that's one thing, because we have a lot of, at least within our web of support, is what they call our Project Coordinator Academy. We have our SharePoints with a lot of manuals that we use, and based off of those SharePoints, they're specific to the different functional areas. And so you learn a lot as well by just navigating through those, and outside of just your regular everyday work. And so by being able to, teach yourself or review things within their shared drives, it gives you opportunities to learn about other areas. And then from there you can explore and try things out.
Awesome. Jaquasia, I want to kind of focus in on your educational path along with that question, because someone might have the same degrees or interests as you. So have you been able to pinpoint a specific path for yourself with your degrees within the project coordinator role, or do you just see yourself being able to branch off anywhere because you're just so open-minded?
Yes, I've seen myself be able to branch off anywhere because I'm very open-minded, but I have realized the specific path that I love is being a vendor manager. I love finances on the study because if we ain't got the coins, the study is not finna flourish. So I love doing finances. And when it comes to my education, eventually I want to be in the executive suite of a company. And so I didn't want to get my PMP because technically I don't want to be a project manager. I don't like what a project manager does because they are always stressed. So, but if I have to cross that hurdle, then I will be there for about 2 years just to have it under my belt. And so I ended up getting my master's in clinical research because one, it kind of chunked me not having to get the PMP, which is a great thing for everyone to get. But I didn't have to get that. And then just going into my doctorate program, that was just another way for people to see that, hey, she's in the PC Academy, she has this education, let's see if we can get her into these higher level roles. So it's just trying to have it come up.
Right. So basically, it's kind of, I wanted to highlight that because I want everyone to know that, having a bachelor's degree and just having a bachelor's degree is okay. Having years and years and years of experience, sometimes, so those of us who are just that lucky to be afforded that, sometimes that's enough. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to go and get education in certain areas unless you want to. That is a personal preference. If you want to be in a certain space and that's what it takes, then yes, shoot for the stars. But to get your foot in the door, it's not necessarily you having to be in a white coat. You can do it. You just have to believe in yourself. And you can
I will just add to that I worked with a regulatory coordinator years and years ago, who's now like program manager over in immunology oncology space. She worked at Macy's. That was her job before she became a regulatory coordinator one. That was what her job was, right? And so that's why we talk about resumes, number one, and number two, interviewing, right? One, you gotta have that resume to get you in the door, those transferable skills that you have. But two, once you get in the door, let them know who you are and what you can bring to the table, right? And then, like Jaquay just said, it's very rare that if you get into that C-suite space that you're not going to need to have those credentials. And she's well aware of that, which is why she's going where she's going, right? And so there are some positions that you'll see where they want you to have an advanced degree. That's what they want you to have. And if you don't have that, they're probably not going to choose you. So thank you so much, Courtney, for, expanding on that in the education piece, because that's important. And people don't really realize, how that impacts your career and your career path as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so continuing on and kind of expanding on that, how you both were able to just fall into research, and you mentioned being able to bring in transferable skills. So what are some key skills transferable that you feel one needs to possess in order to work in the role of a project coordinator? Either one of you can start.
Okay. One, time management skills is up there, communication, problem solving, because these studies are not they're by the book, of course. You have SOPs you got to follow and stuff, but everything is not perfect. And you're going to have issues that come out of nowhere. For example, the war in Ukraine. Oh, we got to have new procedures and policies popping up because we have to close down all of our sites and all of our patients. We need to figure out how can we get them this drug so they can, kind of, live a little bit longer. So you have to have adaptability. You don't know, you might have a PM change every year. You got to adapt to new PM. And then you got to have leadership skills also. Not everyone wants to be a leader, and I understand that, but you got to know how to at least call the shots and say no. Yes, maybe this will work type of thing.
Alicia, anything to add to that?
So ideally, I agree with everything Jaquasia said. Definitely being able, as far as leadership, being able to have a voice, as we talked about earlier, and being able to speak up and take on, new tasks and volunteer. Also, adaptability is very important. Being able to adjust and evolve with every situation that happens. And as far as transferable skill, another transferable skill I was going to mention is just you don't be afraid to take risk. Research, especially as a project manager, project coordinator, sometimes you have to throw out ideas maybe everyone else isn't thinking of, or just ask the question. It's okay to ask, and it may lead to other discoveries or it may not. So
I definitely like how you brought up being able to ask the question, because we tend to find ourselves in spaces where people feel like everyone in the room should know the answer. That's why we're in the room, and that's not necessarily true. So being able to not be afraid to ask the question, because I have 100 things going on. I forgot. I'm a human. So can we just rewind that, rehash that, so that we have a better understanding and can come to a quicker consensus? And being able to think outside the box. Critical thinking skills across research is so important, because you just never know what you're going to come across. And being able to solve minuscule issues could be like that one little idea could be something that could fix something for an entire sponsor, contract. So I think that's very great. So
can I add to that, just because I love what you all do. I really do. There's some roles that just get undervalued. I know that you have to be a good communicator. Your interpersonal skills when being a project coordinator are paramount, because you work with so many different teams. Like you said earlier, Jaquasia, you're working with biostats, you're working with, product development, data managers and all of that. And working with it's true. They do have their own type of personality traits in some of those roles. And you have to know how to kind of work with them. And so you two ladies are really good at, switching that hat for whoever you're talking to, right? And reading the room and being able to get things done despite or in spite of who you are speaking with. So that's another skill for all of you out there who want. And I have a question for you at the end too, that someone asked in the chat. But go ahead, Courtney. Yes, I love what you all are doing. You all are amazing.
Okay, so with the current trends in clinical research, what certain things do you see that are impacting the things that you all have to do on a day-to-day basis? Like what you were mentioning before, the war in Ukraine, unfortunately, COVID, shutdowns, things that have been happening with the Microsoft blackout. What are some ways and some things that you would say you see as a major thing that could impact what you do?
Definitely what's going on in the government. Like, yes, we're in clinical research, but our higher up leaders, our directors, they got to watch the news. They really do, because we have to make sure our sites in other countries are safe. And so for one of my studies, it's for an issue called hyperkalemia. That's when there's too much potassium in your blood. Europe was the country that had the most prevalence for that issue.
Oh, wow.
Ukraine fell in that bucket. That is where majority of our patients was. So it's like now our study had to reroute, and we've been halted because it's hard for us to recruit those patients in other countries, even in the US, because it's not prevalent here. So now they're trying to, a way to work around that is, well, you have inclusion and exclusion criteria in your protocol. Now they got to do protocol amendments to try to see what can we do over this side of the world to get these patients to get enrolled into this study. It may work, it may not work, but that's how you go from one protocol amendment to 9. And once you get up there to 9, it's just, well, what are we going to do for this study now? Because it's not working. So,
okay. Kalisha, any situations that you could think of that might be impacting you or could eventually impact the things that you do?
I mean, overall, Ukraine is another big one on my global project as well, that came about. And unfortunately, the sponsor on our project, Fortria has determined that it was possible to go into the country, but the sponsor won't even consider it because of everything that is going on there, as well as just, the government in various countries. I know there were some things going on in South America, and I know we had some issues getting approval for for that project actually in Argentina at the time. And so, you just have to be aware and on top of your current regulatory issues that are happening in different countries. And so, governmental issues are key.
Awesome. So I think I'm going to wrap it up with what advice would you give to someone considering a career in clinical research in general, and to the one who is looking to enter into your specific role? And we'll start with you, Kalisha.
So what I would say, there's a lot of opportunities within clinical research, especially for someone that's interested in, switching careers. Again, there's opportunities from project management, which we're in clinical as project coordinators. There's financials, there's data management, ETMF, regulatory auditing, medical monitoring. And so with the various areas, definitely don't be afraid to look around. And once you do get your foot in the door, see if there's opportunities to, volunteer or take on tasks in different areas, to see what might spark your interest long term. And from that, just, stay the course. There are challenges that you will face, but don't be afraid, because we're all human, and things are going to happen. But if you're really interested, just continue to pursue it.
I love that. I love that a lot. Jaquasia, what about you?
So when considering a career in clinical research, the first thing that comes out my mouth is, let me add you to Black Women in Clinical Research on Facebook. Number 2, so I know that you're serious about this, I need you to pay to get your resume looked at, please. That's the first step I need you to take. Once you do that, then, okay, well, let's look and see, search these jobs, any jobs in the clinical research, see what your transferable skills can get you into. And once you know what I'm saying, apply to these jobs, or if it's a hard time you getting a response for these jobs, I need you to invest in LinkedIn. That premium account is free for 30 days. Use it, please. You can cancel it after 30 days, but please use a premium account so you can message higher up people. And actually, social media is huge in itself in the world. People can't live without it. So if you searching people on the internet that has social media, you might follow somebody that's in clinical research and you don't necessarily know them. Still, don't be afraid to just ask the question. So you have to put your foot out there. You have to be willing to spend the money because everything is not free. Okay. And that's what I recommend.
I appreciate that for sure, because you are very correct. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Um, and yes, we did discuss that a lot of times you don't have to go into those extra degrees and spending the money that way. However, if you don't know how to write a resume, go to somebody who does. And there are wonderful, wonderful group of women who will review your resume, who will go through interview questions with you, who will discuss salary negotiations, who will discuss career paths with you if that is what you need. It is not something that the investment will not return to you. I promise you. Any service you get from this group, your investment will return to you 1,000-fold. I promise you. I promise. Thank you all for sure for joining us. I'm hoping that some of our audience has some questions for us. Please don't be afraid to drop those questions in the chat. We're looking. Tiffany, you had another question for our ladies, did you not?
Oh wait, I thought I was removing your pen. Hold on one second. Did I? Let's see here. I think so. So I was going to give everyone a chance that I always have a question. So I do want to give anyone that wanted to drop something in the chat. But now's your time. You can come off of mute. You don't have to come off camera. That's totally fine. But if you want to ask a question, now's your time. And I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Courtney just said and what Jaquasia said and what Kalicia just said. When we want to get these jobs in clinical research, remember what we are. Black women in clinical research. You know what the landscape looks like, right? When it comes to us, it's not many of us in this field. And so even though it's not fair, it's totally not fair. We have to go a little bit extra. And that little bit of extra for us is how does our resume look, right? You know what I mean? And they might not know who we are, what we look like, but LinkedIn is going to show that. And so if you want to be able to ask for these salaries that you're asking for and these benefits, this is the one thing that's going to get you in that door, right? You know, we can be great. I'm a great interviewer. Once you get me in the room, I know I'm going to get it. But honey, I have to get there first. So that means my resume has to be top notch over anybody else to even get that call back, right? And so when you invest in yourself, it's going to come back. Think about the salary you want and think about paying $60, $100, $200. Think about that and think about your return on investment if you get a $60,000 salary, 70, 80, 90, 1,000 plus. 130 plus. I have people making a lot more than that I felt their resume plus, right? So just think about things like that. So who has a question? You can raise. You don't have to raise your hand. Just come off mute. Who has a question? I know you did. Okay. Well, you know what? It's Onika. I don't want to say your name wrong. There's a question in the chat. You kind of answered it, but I will ask both of you and whoever wants to chime in. How long until you felt comfortable in your role as a project coordinator? This particular audience member is in quality control. And they're starting pretty much brand new. They're not starting in quality control and research, I don't believe. So what advice or encouragement can you give to someone who doesn't have maybe that confidence because they don't have the experience? So how was that for you until you felt comfortable to be assertive and say no and things like that?
I felt comfortable in my role as a project coordinator, specifically being in the academy, because I realized this is basically an on-the-job training that I get paid a salary for. So I'm trying to take so many risks that you might think I'm crazy. If I make mistakes, it's okay. I'm going to fix it next time. I just learned a lesson. So that's how I thought when I first got hired at LabCorp. Now, I've been in my position for 3 years now, and I want to say once I start realizing that my PMs might not know a lot of information. You might get PMs that don't know much at all. And you have to step in for them and you have to teach them something. Piggyback off that and start relaying your ideas to the project lead. And that's how you start to have a voice. And once you start being confident in that situation, that's when you'll start to know, like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. We can do this is not going to work. So it took me about a couple months to learn how to just take risks. And then it took me about a year to just really just dive in and say, no, yes, this is gonna work, and not be afraid to make mistakes.
Sorry, I was gonna say, Kalicia, what about you? I saw your face like, okay. So how was your journey to feeling comfortable in the space that you're in? Because even though they say project coordinator, you have a lot of responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. And so So when did you get to a point where you felt comfortable being in that space to kind of make those decisions, maybe on behalf of your project manager, right? Where you have to be the one making those decisions. So how did you feel comfortable, and what got you there?
So I'm going to start when I first started in research, actually, as a research assistant. I was very much like that person that, I'll take on anything. I would stay later than my research coordinator doing work. I was running over all over the place trying to, take patients here or there and volunteering for different things and doing data entry and everything. And at that time, I knew, well, I didn't have much of a voice, I felt like, and there was another young woman as well, and she was older than me and was a coordinator. And one day she saw me staying late, and she was like, "Kalisha, I'm gonna tell you this now in your career." She was like, "Don't be afraid to take risks. You need to speak up when someone is doing something wrong, and and don't overwork yourself." She was like, surprised me when I started the company. A young lady had left literally right before I started. Apparently, she got taken out and went and directed directly to the hospital because she was working herself so much. And she came back a few months after I had started, and her health was much better. But still, you stressing out and doing way too much, it takes a toll on your health. And you definitely need to make sure that you speak up for you. If something is going on or you have other personal obligations or issues, you need to be like, right now, I don't have the bandwidth. It is okay to say that. And if you want to try something, let them know. I can try it, but I might not be able to get this delivered to you by that timeline. Do you mind if I have a few additional days for this? Or and so just being able to take the time and speak up for yourself has definitely been something that I've continued to learn through my career, because even in different settings, sometimes I might hesitate, but when you ask the question, even still, or make note of something, maybe someone forgot, it leads to, oh, okay, yes, or something may have almost gotten missed completely that needed to be included. So it's just, it's important to take the risk.
Yes, I agree with that 1,000%. And I want to just say for everyone out there, any job you get, it's going to be that period of uncomfortableness and not knowing, and just not really understanding what's going on in the processes and policies and things like that. But that's with any job, right? And every job is different. And so I think if you go in with the attitude that I want to learn, I'm going to learn the process. I want to learn how to do this work. And I believe that we're all smart. So once you get the job, know that you belong in that role. That's why they hired you, and you can do the work. And so again, just doing the work, getting comfortable doing the work until you get to a point where, okay, now I know really what I'm doing. And so, and for some people, that might be day one, right? If I go to a job on day one, I know what's up because you hired me. But there may be some people who like, I need maybe a few months after I get a little bit of training, or after I do my first this or my first call, right? Especially for those who we're talking about project coordinators, but even some project coordinators shadow their project manager, or maybe the other project coordinator that was there, right? So Jaquasia and Kalicia are in a training program, which is great because they give them all the skills so that when they leave that program, they already know what's up, right? They already know. Oftentimes for program coordinators, you may not get that type of level of training that they're getting to be able to be in this role, to be a subject matter expert in whatever they're doing, right? And so you're going to have that learning curve as well. Before I let everybody go, because I do want to say, and I'm going to let Courtney say a few closing remarks as well. I want to thank you, Jaquasia. I want to thank, is it Kalicia or Kalisha? I want to make sure I say it right.
It's Kalisha according to my family, but Kalicia, my English my English teacher, third grade taught me it's
Okay, well,
Kalicia.
I'm not messing with family, so family is not going to jump
But
so
yes.
please tell them I apologize for the entire time that I called you Kalicia, because I have a niece named Alicia, so I always get confused when I'm talking to people. But I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and give insight to all of our BWICR members who faithfully come here. And I want to thank my BWICR members, and of course Danielle, who's the founder of Black Women in Clinical Research, for holding this space for us. And I'm going to let Courtney give some closing remarks as well before we close out.
Awesome. Thank you. Kalisha, your mama said it was Kalisha. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to everyone else out there, if you did not get your question answered or could not get your question off in time, please do not feel ashamed or like it's too late to throw it in the chat, we can probably stay on for a little bit longer after the recording is over to get those answered. Or you can link with these two ladies by following them on LinkedIn. If you're there, if you're not, you should be. And connect with them there. And maybe if you ask them questions, they will be able to answer you in time because they do still have work to do. So be patient with them, everyone, please. Thank you. Other than that, thank you all for joining us for another career discussion, and we will see you next month.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let everybody go. Feel free to drop off. Don't forget that November 8th through the 10th is the second annual BWICR National Conference in Atlanta. Make sure you go get that registration done. Again, thank you, Jaquasia and Kalisha. I can see your mama hitting us. I'm not even going there, okay? Kalisha, thank you again for having us, and thank you for taking the time to be here. We really, really do appreciate it. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be getting some LinkedIn connections in the next few days. So look for those. I already hit Jaquasia up, so Kalisha, you coming next for me. So thank you again, ladies, and have a good night, everybody.
Yes, good night, everyone.
Good night. If anybody was staying on longer, I don't mind staying on a little longer.
I'm here. So if anybody wants to stay on and ask, so I do have a, you know what, we can kind of have a little bit of conversation. So someone had dropped in the chat, they are currently an administrative assistant, and they were asking pretty much how can they prepare themselves, say they're looking to go into project coordinating, project management. How can they prepare themselves now in their administrative role? Like, should they be taking on more responsibilities, or what kind of things can they be doing to prepare to apply for those, where they can gain those transferable skills that you all talk about and look for in project coordinators?
I would just say administrative assistant, those skills transfers to a project coordinator to a T. So you're doing perfect anyway.
That's what I put in the chat. I literally said that.
I learned this from Andrika too. Just make sure in your resume, you just making it sound great what you do. For instance, I learned I fixed the thermostat or whatever, it needed to be fixed. And I was able to just put it in smarter terms, was able to fix the air conditioning system in my project coordinator office, and now everyone can just breathe correctly, something like that. But just make sure you know how to just make
all about the verbiage.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
I agree.
I knew that was going to be the answer. I was like, let me ask. Again, I mean, thank you again, everyone. But if you really do have a question and you want to come off mute, you can. If you don't, I'm still looking at the chat for anyone who has any questions. And thank you all for just, again, staying on even a little bit after 8 o'clock. I really do appreciate it. And Courtney, you know, I'm always thankful for you to be here because, you know, I talk. I'm like, I need to be quiet, honey. I eat cough drops like candy because I talk so much. Just in general, I talk too much. And my friend just hit me up like, we're going to karaoke later. So I don't know how my night going to end, y'all. I don't know. But Courtney, I'm actually going to message you because I know you don't like waiting. I'm going to message you, okay, later. I know you guys. I don't want you to get anxiety. Don't get anxiety, okay? So Tyra's asking, will there be another PM Academy, and how do they find it? So how do you even find out about the Academy?
Of course. Go ahead, Kalisha.
On Fortria's website, there is a project that is available, and actually they've started something in the last year. There are that they've been posting about people who have moved on from the Project Management Academy, giving some insight. There's like, they're no more than like 3 minutes a piece, each one of them. I think it's about 5 been posted so far. The most recent was last month. But I'm going to say from my experience, I know for sure it seems like every summer we take a cohort right around probably, they probably do the hiring around April, May timeframe. That's been fairly consistent, seems to be. And then there are some additionals that trickle in throughout the year.
Yep, and also just ask people that you know, ask me, ask Felicia. You can definitely ask me because listen, once we send referrals and if you get hired, we get bonuses. So I like that type of money, so you can definitely ask me too.
I can't believe that Danielle is raising her hand when she literally owns this entire event. But yes, Danielle, what is your question that you have?
I like to be proper. So just because I started BWICR, BWICR is for us. So I just like to do things the proper way. But I was going to say that maybe I'm pretty sure people don't know. When I first started in the clinical research industry, the name that I kept seeing when I was an intern was Kalisha's name because
Period.
she
She
so so when I started my internship, she was the coordinator that was there, and I kept seeing her name the whole time. So her name is the name who I always saw when I first started in the clinical research industry. So we worked at well, I couldn't say I worked there, but I was an intern there. She actually worked there because I wasn't getting paid. She was a coordinator there, and I was an intern there, and that was my first internship. And this, I tell people the story, but I know a lot of people may not know this story. But when I was trying to get into the clinical research industry and no one would hire me, I cold called this clinical research site. At the time, it's Atlanta Vanguard. I don't even think it's around anymore. I think they separated and yeah. So it was a husband and wife that had this clinic. There was a black owned site, and so this clinic is who I called when I was trying to get into clinical research, and they were the ones who gave me the foundation that I needed in order to get into the clinical research industry, or I should say, actually get a role. Because sometimes the industry would say, "Oh, we want you to have clinical research experience." Well, I decided that I was going to get my clinical research experience. Somebody was going to give it to me, and it just so happened that it was Atlanta Vanguard. So just wanted to say a little backstory and how I used to see her name all the time when I first started.
Yes. And Danielle
I
came
will
on.
say it's a small world. Go ahead, Kalisha.
I was gonna say Danielle came on around the time. Actually, at the time I was pregnant with my son, and it was a private practice, internal medicine and cardiology, and and we had one research manager. Her name was Joyce, and so she assisted mainly with research, with recruitment, and going out to events and recruiting patients. But Danielle, when she came on, it was a pleasure having her and trying to show her around at the time. And it was definitely, and they took a chance on me as well because I moved from research assistant as a research coordinator for them. And it was definitely a great experience and being black owned, and I learned so much in that time frame with them. So it was definitely a rewarding, and I'm grateful to have crossed paths with Danielle then.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember I was there at the site and they didn't have any dry ice. So they said, Danielle, we're gonna have to drive to Publix and get some dry ice. I said, say what?
Oh no, really? That's what they said? Oh no.
Yeah. So me and the coordinator at the time, her and I, we drove to Publix to get some dry ice for our samples.
Sometimes you gotta train them. You gotta train them up. You gotta
By,
train them up.
by any means necessary.
Right? Yeah, but I was going to say that it's a small world, this clinical research thing, right? And so when we talk about, here's the thing though, right? If I want to burn a bridge, honey, I'm not trying to come back anyway. But for the most part, I try not to burn bridges because I've seen them countless times just because we run in the same circle that I'm going to see that person again. So
Right.
it's just like you, Danielle and Kalisha. She had actually told me like, I know Kalisha. I'm like, how do you know her already? Just let this go. Someone else is asking in the chat, is there a job board for Black-owned clinical research practices? There is blackdoctors.org. I know about that. What do you think, Danielle? Is there another?
There's no job board, but the thing about it is I'm not going to say that I know all of the Black owned sites for the most part, but I know quite a few. And so we have, separate from BWICR, we just had our first summit last Saturday. It's called Noir Research Collective. So we have a lot of, I would say, diverse site that we are connected to. So a lot of times if somebody is hiring, like I put it out there, you know, but the thing about it, I feel like the way that helped me the most was just going on clinicaltrials.gov, going through that list and calling people and just seeing, okay, this site is, how far away is this from me? Just looking up the site, seeing what the site is about, because there's so many sites that are conducting clinical trials, and a lot of them do not have the means to promote that they are looking for roles. So some of these is almost like what they say, a diamond in the rough or something. Like you're going to find it, but you're going to have to do some research to get it. So, and I always tell people, when you get into clinical research, it's going to require research. This is not something, a lot of times it's just going to fall in your lap. You're going to have to work for this. This is probably, I would say, out of all of the different careers that I've had, this was probably the hardest but most rewarding career. And I really had to work for, get into clinical research from the ground up. So it's going to require a different level, probably the most work that you have ever worked with getting into a career, but it is definitely going to be worthwhile. So I would say to, buckle up and, just to do your research and I had to teach myself those acronyms.